The desert night had grown colder. Much colder than a desert night should ever be. Rango stood alone in the sand. The wind whispered through the empty dunes. His red Hawaiian shirt fluttered slowly as he stared at the small black ticket in his hand. The words on it glowed faintly in the moonlight. Next arrival, soon. Rango tilted his head slightly. Now that right there, partner, is what I call a mighty suspicious piece of paper. He tried to throw the ticket away, but the moment it left his hand, the wind lifted it, spinning slowly through the air, and then, like something alive, the ticket floated gently back into his palm. Rango blinked twice. Well, that is not normal. He looked around the dark desert. The train was gone. The tracks were gone. Everything looked normal again. But then, far away across the dunes, a sound echoed through the night. A distant metal whistle. Oh! Rango froze. His bright orange eyes slowly widened. That sound was getting closer. The sand beneath Rango's feet began to vibrate. Soft at first, then stronger. The ground started to shake. Lines slowly appeared in the sand. Two long metal rails, emerging from beneath the desert floor. Old train tracks. Rango stepped back nervously. Now hold on their desert. I do not remember ordering a train. The rails stretched across the dunes, leading into the darkness of the night. And then, from the far horizon, a glowing light appeared, slowly moving closer. The whistle screamed again. Oh, a train. But this one was different. The metal was darker. The windows glowed with ghostly blue light. The smoke from the engine drifted upward like spirits escaping the earth. Rango's curly tail tightened behind him. The train slowed as it approached. Its wheels screeched against the tracks. And finally, it stopped directly in front of him. The door slowly opened. Inside the train, the same ghost passengers were waiting. But this time, they were staring directly at him, like they had been expecting him. The train door creaked open wider. Cold air spilled out from inside. Colder than ice. Colder than death. Rango stepped back slowly. Nope, nope. This here is where Rango politely declines. Then a familiar voice echoed from inside the train. Tickets, please. The skeletal vulture conductor stepped forward from the shadows. His glowing blue eyes burned brighter than before. His wings stretched slightly as he smiled. You missed your stop earlier. Rango raised the ticket slowly. Well, now that is funny, because I do not remember buying this ride. The conductor tilted his head. Everyone buys the ride eventually. Some just try to run first. Behind the conductor, the passengers began whispering again. Soft, desperate voices. Join us, join us, join us. The fox passenger slowly stood up. The raccoon with the suitcase lifted its hollow eyes. The owl turned its head completely around. All of them staring at Rango, waiting. Rango took a slow step toward the train. Not because he wanted to, but because something was pulling him. The ticket in his hand began glowing brighter. The conductor spoke calmly. This train does not travel through the desert. It travels through endings. Rango frowned. Well, partner, that sounds like a mighty unpleasant destination. The conductor leaned closer. His voice became a whisper. This train collects those who escaped their fate. Rango's eyes widened slightly. Now that right there is a mighty rude accusation. The ghost fox suddenly spoke. His voice cracked like dry bones. You were supposed to be on the train. Rango slowly stepped backward, but the sand behind him began pulling his feet down, like the desert itself wanted him to stay. The raccoon passenger lifted its suitcase. It slowly opened. Inside were dozens of black tickets, all with names written on them, and every single one had the same destination, the afterlife. Rango turned toward the train windows, and then he saw something that made his blood run cold. A passenger sitting alone at the back of the train. Chameleon, green skin, curly tail, red Hawaiian shirt, bright orange eyes. It was him. Another Rango sat inside the train, silent, still, dead. Rango whispered slowly, now that right there is impossible. The conductor smiled wider. Not impossible, inevitable. The ghost Rango inside the train slowly lifted his head. His empty glowing eyes stared directly at the real Rango. Then he whispered, "You were late." The passengers began laughing quietly, a dry, broken sound that echoed through the train. The conductor raised his wing toward the door. "Last chance, passenger. Your seat is waiting." Rango looked at the glowing ticket, then at the ghost version of himself inside the train. The desert wind suddenly roared louder. The train lights flickered violently. Something about this whole situation smelled like trouble. And Rango had survived plenty of trouble before. He slowly smiled. "Well now, partner, I do believe you got the wrong chameleon." Then suddenly, Rango crushed the black ticket in his fist. The paper burst into black dust. The train screamed loudly. The passengers shrieked in anger. The conductor's glowing eyes flared with rage. "You cannot refuse the train." Rango tipped his imaginary cowboy hat. "Watch me." The desert wind exploded into a sandstorm. The train began fading, this ghostly metal dissolving into darkness. The conductor screamed one last time. "The train always returns." The storm swallowed everything. And then, silence. The desert was empty again. No train, no tracks, no passengers. Only Rango standing alone in the sand. He brushed the dust from his shirt, looked toward the horizon, and whispered quietly, "Well, partner, next time that train shows up, Rango is taking a different road." But far away in the darkness, a whistle echoed again, because some trains never stop hunting.